So this is another story that, but this one I don't know, do I?
I have a new story for you to read today. And if you don't want to read it, you're going to get the knife. I found it in a very old book. And even though I can't read very well, I can see the pictures. And they look, well, very pretty. You will read it. And you will read it now, okay? Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Great. Okay, but I have to read it, right? Or the knife? Okay. All right. You want me to read all this stuff in the beginning, the title and stuff?
It's such a beautiful story. It just makes me want to cry.
All right. Okay. The Daughters of Gamoor. Gamoor? Like Gamora? Ew. Attributed to Gustave Lumiere, 1899. You don't even know who that is? I'm sure he didn't write a short story. All right, I'll read it. Okay, here we go. I lived in a dream that was full of color, but was silent. I approached a gray cemetery that was completely littered with brown leaves. There, a building made of bricks, a half circle, stood supported on waist-high wooden poles. It was directly in front of me. A red tunnel on either end of the brick half circle glowed with flames in the heated stones. I suppose that the sun, unseen, was what flooded the area with an amber overcast. A metal track ran into either end of the tunnel. What is this, I thought, but did not say aloud. Before I could think much about it, my attention was captured by the sudden appearance of 5 young blonde girls, marching with rigid, militaristic steps toward the metal track. Their ages were mere years apart, and one looked nearly exactly like the other. Each held a very long, broad-bladed knife in their right hands.
These little girls, they're so pretty and sweet. When you think about it, little girls do not have puppy dog tails, they have knives. And they're not made of sugar and spice, but more like blood and water. That's what's cool. Stupid little stories about little cute girls and stuff is stupid. Okay, read some more.
A distant tremor I felt in my feet, for there was no sound. It was a repetitive thrumming I felt until I saw a gray metal flat car running on an unseen power source, rolled into view from the arched entrance of the building on the right. The ride, therefore, was clockwise. You don't even know what clockwise is, do you? Okay. A most beautiful woman, a petite, delicate creature, was securely lashed to the flat car with what looked to be weighty chains. The flat car glowed bright red. I know, you. That's not a pretty picture, you know. I mean, these pictures are horrible. A most beautiful woman, a petite, delicate creature, was securely lashed to the flat car with what looked to be weighty chains. That's not pretty. The flat car glowed bright red. I could feel its singeing heat from where I stood several feet away. She was dressed in a white, simple skirt trimmed with lace. Her hair was golden and fell about her shoulders in long curls. Her face, what I could see of it, was smeared with despair and resignation. It was sad. Oh, you don't care, do you? She had to look over her shoulders at the young girls, for she was turned away from them. The chains pulled her down toward the floor of the open car and left her back exposed. 2 things happened when the flat car jerked and bumped its way to the place where the distance was equal between the 2 ends of the tunnel. Flames greedily shot out of the large arch of the red tunnel on the left. The second thing nearly made me faint in horror, for with unmasked joy plainly inscribed on their otherwise innocent visages. The 5 young girls began penetrating with gleeful energy the back of the poor woman with their large glinting blades. It's not funny.
Wonderful, beautiful story. I love it.
As they ripped the long blade backward and out, thin looping strings of crimson were rudely slung here and there and covered the girls and the woman with wet red. The woman's only response was that she desperately tried to disappear into the floor, though it burned bright crimson. There was no cry for her in my silent dream. The blonde girls did not shriek with delight, but only seemed to exert great effort in their work. Before the car entered the flaming arch of the building on the left, 2 things happened. The girls stopped stabbing the woman of misery. They held the blades over their heads, shook them like savages, but made no victorious cry. Red strings were flinging all over and down upon them. Then, as the car neared the opening, the flames intercepted her. Her body instantly bloomed bright orange, and she became a fat, crackling, jittering lump before she disappeared into the glowing hole. I screamed the name of my God, but no sound came forth. One of the blonde girls, the smallest, was watching me, trying to speak. She came near me, and her mouth began moving, as if she were speaking. Words appeared in front of my eyes, as they do in the motion pictures we see, and I was so afraid. This is what they said. She was asked many years ago if she knew why she was here. Foolishly, she did say that she was here for good reasons. I nodded my head for her to go on. She glared at me for several more seconds before she continued, riveting me where I stood. She said she believed she had come from another place where she had been a queen in a place called ancient Greece. The words jumped and jittered just like the placards do in those motion pictures I love so dearly. In the darkened theaters, the young girl's lips were moving again, so I knew I would be exposed to fresh horrors to read. She said her name had been Gamoor, and she had, in a strange fit of fevered maladies, drowned her 5 daughters in a large vat of boiling pig's blood. But the smallest girl stopped moving her lips. She covered her mouth, and I assumed her shoulders shook because she was crying. But much to my horror, when she removed her hands from her blood-smeared lips, I saw drool dipping down from her smiling face. Her lips began moving again, and a new placard would soon appear before my eyes, and it did. But this is the revenge that was set before her for believing such nonsense. No such thing ever happened, and we are not her daughters. 5 demons are we, and we were asked if we would pose as his daughters to torment her for all eternity. Naturally, we were only too happy to comply. We have been doing so now for close to 1 billion infinities. That's horrible.
I think every year you're gonna read The Daughters of Gamoor to me because it's beautiful. Yes, it's very pretty and very sentimental. Yes, it is, and I like it.
I swept my arm around this somber glade. Since I could not be heard, I hoped to indicate by this gesture a query of where this place might be. Her eyes glittered with tears, and her shoulders shook with laughter as her lips began moving again. Then the placard appeared and frightened me much. You know where this is, and when you join Mother here one day, Father, our merriment will span the eons. I fainted dead away and fell silently to the forest floor, and awoke in my cold bedchamber, soaked in sweat, panting profusely. The end. That's a horrible story. Do you know that? Horrible.
Such a beautiful story. Well, I'm gonna take off now and look for some more stories for you to read for me. And you will read them. You will go under the knife. Okay, see you later. Bye. Bye. It was a beautiful story.